What is up, duelists, and welcome to a hopefully very exciting Yu-Gi-Oh video, because the Genesys points update for December was just posted, or rather it was posted last night for me because they announced it for the 15th, but they posted it relatively late, later than the usual advanced constructed ban list, so I was already asleep at that point, but I woke up to it this morning and I'm hoping for some really good changes because they've announced amazing things in the most recent blog post. So let's see if they have really held up to that. And I think this one is a very important one because everyone is like, Genesys is kind of like out of this honeymoon phase now where everyone knows it's a good format, but people are realizing, you know, it does have some problems, but Konami has kind of promised to be able to handle those very quickly if they do so properly. And I think that's what's really huge about this one. So let's check it out. Before we do though, very quickly, I've already posted this everywhere, but if you haven't seen it yet, I'm hosting the 2025 Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Game Design Awards again, which is something I did last year, where we just talked about, you know, what kind of things you liked over the course of the year for Yu-Gi-Oh! In both TCG and Master Duel, you know, which kind of card designs were good, which kind of card designs did you not like, archetypes, which one was too broken, which one was fun, which one wasn't fun to play against, and so on and so forth. So if you're a TCG and or Master Duel player, please, there's going to be a link in the pinned comments as well as in the description. We at the point of recording, we already have almost 3,000 respondents to the survey, which I think is amazing. So I'm trying to reach as many people with this as possible so we can get as much feedback as possible. And who knows, if we get a lot of responses, maybe even Konami will take a look at it and say like, hey, this archetype was really cool. We're going to make more archetypes like this in the future or whatever, you know. A man can cope. Anyways, check it out, please, if you want to take part. I'd really appreciate if you took the time. Anyways, Genesys December points update. All right, so we're expecting hits to the best decks in the format, being Draco Tail and Radiant Typhoon mostly. We're expecting hits to Droll Lockbird, which is awesome. We're expecting hits to some of the floodgates / towers, like hopefully Rongo, please. The Onomat deck as a whole. And a lot of other things. All right, let's go right in. All right, I haven't seen this yet. Draco Tail hits right off the bat. Okay, Phimena to 30, Draco Tail, Ketu to 15, and Flame to 3. All right, that's a lot of points, but I think that's fair enough. I think this is going to make it so you're only going to play one Phimena if you're going to play this deck, which is fair, because Phimena felt like by far the most broken card in my deck at YCS Bologna. I played 2 copies for 40 points. So, yeah, okay, fair enough. Ketu to 15 and Flame to 3 are both kind of minimal. I only played 1 Ketu to begin with, so that would basically just mean plus 5 points total. I think this is kind of achieving what they want to achieve here, which is that Draco Tail remains somewhat playable. I could still see people play Draco Tail with this rate, because you just play 1 Phimena, 1 Ketu. That's 45 points. You got 3 Mululu. That's going to be 60 points total. What else? You've got Arthalion costs 20. So if you want to play 2 Arthalion, that would be 100, which you won't do. So you're going to play 1 Arthalion, that's going to put you to 80. You're going to play Flame, that's going to be 83. And then you have like 17 points spare, and you lose 1 Phimena compared to before. Which is still doable, but definitely less potent. All right, fair enough. Droll oh, 25? Oh my god, okay. Droll Lockbird 25 points is awesome. I was kind of afraid they were just going to give it like 10 or 15, which would have probably left it more. I mean, obviously, if the card was cheaper, it would have been more playable, duh. 25 points Droll Lockbird is going to make it very hard for people to justify playing this card, because it is only really good and really necessary against some strategies in Genesys format, some of which are hopefully hit in this update as well. I already see some people, because of course Droll Lockbird has been debated so much. I can already see some people saying like, oh, they should not have done this. Droll Lockbird to 25, way too expensive. Now some decks are going to go way too crazy. To which I say, good. Droll Lockbird should be very expensive to play because the card is unfun, is the definition of not fun card design. And if there are decks that become a problem now, they get points. Simple as that. Any deck that becomes top tier that only loses to Droll Lockbird should have more points in Genesys format, in my opinion. I think that is just how it is. I think if there is a deck now that completely explodes in viability and power because Droll Lockbird doesn't get played anymore, then that deck obviously needed points to begin with. And we can react relatively quickly in Genesys format. We have 4 to 6 week windows when we get the next update. So if there's a problematic deck, we're going to hit it quick, and that's good. All right. Rolling Lockbird 25, very happy to see that, honestly. So many rogue decks that I've been messing around with. Dragon Ruler, Necros, all super rogue decks, but have no chance against this card. So yeah, this is gonna... You might think this is gonna help really problematic decks. I think it's gonna help rogue decks that are still rogue decks, but at least they can play the game, which is awesome. All right. Nibiru the Primal Being from 5 to 6, very small increase. I think this is going to leave Nibiru as a relatively popular card in the format, which I think is something that they want, because Nibiru ultimately is like a much healthier version of Droll and Lockbird. It does keep some rogue decks in check as well, just like I said with Droll and Lockbird, but maybe they are a little bit too like cautious to hit both of them super hard, because like Droll and Nib are kind of like the punishments for overextending or playing decks that want to overextend. And if I had to pick which card I would rather play against, it's always Nibiru, basically. Like Nibiru is just a fundamentally healthier card than Droll and Lockbird, but I can definitely see Nibiru going up in the future. If they do achieve the goal of lowering the power level of Genesys format a little bit further, I think Nibiru... There's two worlds. Either Nibiru just doesn't get played because a lot of the decks in the format don't lose to it anyways, because, you know, the power level is lower, or they're going to increase the points of Nibiru eventually as well if it still sees play as much. But for now, I mean, 5 to 6 seems very small. At the same time, I definitely remember some cases where I had like exactly 85 points for my core, and then I could play 3 Nibirus, which now is no longer possible. This was the case in Dracotail, for example. I played... My Dracotail core was 85 points, and then I spent 15 points on 3 Nibirus at Bologna, which with this update, I could only play 2. So it does matter a little bit. All right. Radiant Typhoon changes. Cicada King from 5 to 10. Radiant Typhoon Chant from 0 to 10. And Radiant Typhoon Eldam from 0 to 7. Okay, this is... how I like it. Honestly, I like when they do two like powerful strategies. I like when they do a lot of small point updates, because that leaves you with more room for customization. This doesn't kill Radiant Typhoon, because you can still, I mean, 3 Chant and 3 Eldams, which is what you would want to play for consistency's sake. You know, these are some of the best starters in the deck. This would leave you with 51 points and 49 points to spend if you play 3 of each, which is a lot if you think about it that way, you know. But of course, this gives you the option to play less of these, to play more non-engine, but that's of course, I mean, you want to play 3 of these for a good reason. So this seems like small changes, but it's gonna add up if you want to build the deck properly, as well as, oh, I see Totem Bird here as well. Totem Bird to 10 and Cicada King to 10 are both kind of extra deck staples in this deck. I mean, the deck does get significantly weaker if you have to cut these. So if you want to play 1 of each, you still spend 20 points in the extra deck already, plus 51 here. So Radiant Typhoon now for the full engine is basically 71 points, which is almost all of your points. So you cannot even play a single Pot of Greed with that, let alone 3. So I think that's fair for Radiant Typhoon. Once again, I think the goal is, as always, to leave the deck hypothetically as something that you can play, but just not as free with all of your points, because it's proven to be very strong. All right, Runic Tip, 0 to 10. This is another small hit to Radiant Typhoon, I guess, because this was a popular sub-engine. I don't really mind this even as a Runic enjoyer, because I think 10 points does not kill Runic Tip, at least in the decks where it's worth playing. You can definitely spend 30 points on it, and it's going to be worth it. At the same time, literally, Runics, like, I've not been tempted to play Runic once in Genesys format, except for Radiant Typhoon specifically, and even in Radiant Typhoon, I ended up cutting them because I thought they weren't good enough, because you don't have an extra monster zone. So like you cannot use these to special summon. So ultimately, even as a Runic fan, I don't really care about this, because I wasn't really going to play the Runics anywhere. So it doesn't really bother me much. But even if I wanted to, I could still do it for 10 points. So it's fine. And here are, I think, the most interesting changes of this new batch, at least the ones that were announced beforehand, is that they are putting points on Hecka Hands and Cool Tune, which is something I wasn't sure how to feel about, because on the one hand, I feel like these 2 decks are already, I mean, they haven't done anything in the advanced format yet, and they probably won't for the foreseeable future. So I was kind of on the verge of like, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe this is their one chance to shine in Genesys format. It might be the one place where you can play these cards. So I don't know if I like the fact that they're going to put points on them. At the same time, they put points on them for like a fair enough reason, I guess, because they said like, okay, we want to hit cards that interact with the opponent's main and extra deck, because that can be frustrating, which I understand, especially in Genesys format where some of your cards have points. So like if your opponent just randomly banishes an extra deck monster that you spend some points on, that can be really frustrating. So I can see that. At the same time, I think their deck's playstyle and power level are probably in line with what Genesys format wants to achieve. So I'm happy to see overall we're getting small point values to Hecka Hands and Cooltune, because this means you can definitely play these decks, but you can't play them for free, right? And I think that is something that they should probably do in general with new archetypes, because we've seen this with Radiant Typhoon, where it's basically been the exact same scenario, right? Radiant Typhoon, not good in advanced constructed format, so Genesys format was Radiant Typhoon's chance to shine, and it did, right? But at the same time, I think it's not a good practice to release these kind of archetypes with 0 points, because then it's just, oh well, these decks are kind of going to be good in Genesys format automatically because they are free. They are free, they are new. So even new archetypes that don't see play in advanced format are still relatively high quality. I mean, some of the Hecka Hands and some of the Cooltune cards are really high quality cards. So they're going to see play in Genesys format. And if they're completely free, then they just get the best non-engine paired with that as well, which usually just leads to very powerful and very present decks in Genesys format. And arguably, what I'm trying to say is Radiant Typhoon would have been a really good deck even if it had a couple of 5-pointers slapped onto it in the beginning. And I think this is something that I prefer. I think starting out with some points on an archetype is good. If then it doesn't see play, you can lower the points, but I think you don't risk the deck just running free for a month and getting the best non-engine, which I think is not right. And so, you know, Cooltune Clip and Cooltune Q are both 3-ofs in the deck. So this is going to be 30 points as a baseline for Cooltune, if there's no more cards on the list later down the line. But 30 points for Cooltune is still very few. You can still play like a playset of Ash Blossom if you want to, and you still have points left to spend. So I think that's fair. I think that still makes you want to try Cooltune. At least I want to try Cooltune still with these points. But it's not going to be free, just in case it would be too powerful if it was free. Now, if no one plays Cooltune with these 5-pointers, then clearly the deck isn't good enough, and then you can lower the points. Or you can wait for the deck to get support, which it will be because it's a side set deck building pack, and eventually these cards are going to get more support. So, you know, overall, I'm happy they didn't hit them too harsh, but I'm happy that they are putting some points on them, which I wasn't sure about how I felt about it in the beginning, but now I think it's a good decision. Oh, okay. I like this section. Don't worry. 70 points is so much more than I was hoping for, man. Okay, take that, Automat. Dude, the Automat deck was miserable to play against. I'm so happy about that. A couple of other just combo enablers here down the list, some of which I guess I expected to see points. I didn't really see K9 as a deck that really was super popular in Genesys format. At the same time, K9 cards enable some pretty stupid combos, so you got to be careful with them. And I think rather safe than sorry is a very good place to be when it comes to K9 cards. You know, these cards are already everywhere in advanced format, enabling crazy combos. And I guess one of the reasons to do this was the hit to Droll and Lockbird, because Droll and Lockbird, even though K9 can negate it with Ripper sometimes, is relatively good against some K9 openers. So if Droll sees less play, I think they might be doing some preemptive hits here for combo strategies, which I'm on board with. You know, this is always something I said. Like, if Droll and Lockbird gets points, you probably need to hit some combo decks in the process. This kind of like goes hand in hand, and I think this is what's happening here, which I think is good. Magician Souls and Circular. I mean, it's very on brand for me to be happy about the Circular hit. I think this is just, I think they said something in the What to Expect article about monsters that just spam bodies a little bit too easily. I mean, MathMech Circular is a free rank 4 on the spot, right? If you send Sigma, even without Link monsters, that's pretty powerful, and people were playing this in Onomat versions. And Magician Souls is also a pretty high quality card, even though there's no Link ones to make with it. You know, just the level 1 that you can summon and draw cards with. Circular, I'm on board with. Magician Souls, I feel like could have been like 5 or 10 points. At the same time, you can relatively easily search Magician Souls. You can play 1 copy and then search it with like others, which I don't think Illusion of Chaos has any points. maybe that's the reason why it's getting 15, because this seems like more like a 5 or 10 point cards to me if you want to play multiple copies, but at the same time you can just play 1 Magician Souls and 3 Illusion and you still have 4 copies. So I think that's fine. Fair enough. All right. Ooh, this next section is also good. This is getting better and better. So far, literally no misses. So no misses here so far. This is pretty awesome. Okay. Therion King Regulus 0 to 20, Crossout Designator 10 to 20, Rafflesia 10 to 20. This manifests all of these cards in the same category, basically, or it's kind of like in line with Called by the Grave, which is also 20 points. These are all cards that insulate turn 1 combos by negating hand traps, basically, right? And Regulus even being and Rafflesia both are also end board pieces at the same time if you don't need them in your combo. And I think 20 points for this sort of card is good. I think interacting with hand traps is pretty toxic in general, but also especially in Genesys format where most hand traps cost your opponent points. So they spend precious points on, I don't know, Ash Blossom or Effect Veiler or whatever, Nibiru, and then you just negate them for a card that costs no points or whatever, or less points. So 20 points here is fair, in my opinion, for all of these cards. Whenever these cards, I mean, specifically Crossout and Rafflesia, if those cards saw play, it was usually just to push through some bullshit combos. So very, very good. Ooh, the towers. The towers. Liger Dancer 51. Rongo 68. Okay, they're doing the thing where they're not giving it 86, they're giving it 68. I see what you did there. I honestly think this card should be 100, but at the same time I'll take it. 31 was outrageously low for this card. 68, I'm not sure why exactly 68. Maybe it's just because they switched the numbers around on 86. I don't care. Ultimately, this is good. I mean, especially paired with the Onomat hits up here with Dodo Warrior and Circular, I guess, is also an Onomat hit. As well as Rafflesia. Hopefully this gets rid of Rongo as a strategy for now in Genesys format. I mean, who knows? Maybe eventually if there's a new rank 4 spam deck, it'll come back. But I think for now, that issue should hopefully be patched. I don't know if there's maybe a world where you can play Onomat without Dodo Warrior, and then you still get to play Rongo because it's 68 points. But I don't know. This is something that it still would make the deck significantly weaker because, well, no Dodo Warrior anymore. So, fine by me. Everything so far awesome. This is probably one of my most, like, the Onomat hits low-key, even though it wasn't the most popular deck in the format. To me, personally, this was the least fun deck to play against in the format by far. So I'm happy to see this. And, of course, Great Magnus goes in line with these, and Noir, all getting some points on these tower monsters. I think it's fair that Liger Dancer gets 51 specifically. That was my suggestion as well, because that means you cannot play 2, because 1 is relatively easy to handle. I mean, you still have to draw the out or lose with Liger Dancer, but it's, at least from the Lunalight perspective now, you are choosing to play a deck that loses to 1 Kaiju, and Kaijus are relatively popular in Genesys format. So that is going to, it's less that the deck isn't going to be good anymore, because I think it's still going to be fine, especially if your opponent doesn't draw a Kaiju, you probably just win the game. At the same time, it just serves as a deterrent for people. Like, you don't want to play Lunalight anymore because you do lose to 1 Kaiju often. Magnus 33 is fair. Noir 33, we are getting some Pearly point reductions here, it seems, which I think is good because that makes their overall like strategy more consistent and transparent. When someone looks at the list, you're like, okay, well, it seems like all of the towers here have points, which I thought it was always a weird approach to mainly hit the main deck cards for Pearly, because those are usually all fair. So we're making a little bit of a switch up here. We're reducing Pearly to 10, Sleepy to 10, and Pearlily to 7, which overall, I think this might even be a net positive for Pearly, right? Because if you only play 1 Noir, you spend 33 points on that, but you save 15 points on your playset of Pearly, you save 15 points on your playset of Sleepy, and you save 9 points on your playset of Pearlily, which means you save 39 points here, and which is a net positive of 6 if you play all of these cards. Can you play all of these cards? 33, no. You can play 1 Noir, 3 Pearly, 3 Sleepy, which is 93, and then 1 Pearlily for 100, if that's something you wanted to do. You can still play around with the numbers here. You can still play like, oh, 2 of this or 2 of this, and then you save some points in other places. But overall, you know, this is fair, I think, for Pearly. Not a net negative or net positive, I think, but just playing around with the numbers a little bit. just to make it so all of the towers monsters have points, to make the list more transparent, which is good. All right, more automat hits. Keep them coming. Keep them. Give me more. Give me more. I live off of this type of stuff. Gaga Gaga Girl 0 to 15. Nice. Goblin Biker Big Gabonga from 0 to 15. This, I think, is the category of extra deck cards they mentioned where extra deck cards access your main or extra deck, right? Like, this is just generic rank 3, rank 4, or synchros that give you access to cards from your deck, which they are gonna adjust a little bit, which I think is good. That's just a good recipe, right? Like, giving points on these type of cards discourages crazy combo plays, which I think that's why people play Genesys format, because they don't want to deal with this kind of stuff. So that's awesome. All right, Gaga Gaga Girl 15, Gabonga 15 in exchange, because of course Goblin Bikers wasn't a problem, but we are reducing Goblin Biker Grand Entrance down to 20 in exchange for this. So Goblin Biker itself will not really suffer from this exchange. But other decks that might be splashing this as an engine just to combo will suffer. So I think this is just a lot of this that we're looking at right now is just general housekeeping of making these hits consistent. You know, like if they are putting points on towers, then Noir should also have points. So they're reducing Pearly main deck points to give Noir points. And here they're doing the same thing. You know, Goblin Biker Big Gabonga falls in the category of extra deck monsters that access your main deck. So they're giving it points to be in line with the other changes. But to not hurt Goblin Bikers too much, they're reducing Grand Entrance, which I think is good. Especially because Grand Entrance could hypothetically be a card that you want to play in multiples. So you're saving points actually here in Goblin Bikers. You can get away with one big Gabonga and then you can still play 3 copies of Grand Entrance. And that's going to be less points than before. Dragon Drive, 15 points. Punk and Psychic stuff has been a good deck in Genesis, so this is good. Galaxy Photon Dragon 0 to 15. Nash Knight to 15. A lot of them seem to be priced at 15 points for now, which I think is good. And that also goes for Wind-Up Carrier Zen Mighty. They're doing Zen Mighty down to 15 and Hunter to 86. This is, of course, so you cannot do these together. No hand loop for Wind-Ups. This is definitely a positive change for Wind-Up. I mean, Wind-Up saw 0 play in Genesis format, so I guess fair enough. Wind-Up is a pretty combo-heavy strategy, so it's a little dangerous, but at the same time, I think they've just determined for now that 15 points is where they want these kind of cards to be at, which I think is a solid baseline. You know, if you pair this with some main deck points for decks that are too powerful, I think that's already good enough. All right, Alan Bershin 0 to 20, more hits to Math Mech. Good hits in my book. All right, a lot of generic extra deck stuff that just enables combos is getting points, which is, once again, this update so far hasn't missed yet. It's been awesome. I of course, I'm kind of like going over all of these changes and talking about all of them individually, so it's taking some time, but so far this has been banger after banger after banger after banger. This is awesome. All right, and here's where we get some point decreases, I suppose. Centurion Primera and Chudea from 5 and 3 down to 2 and 1. Good changes. Centurion is a deck that is completely fair, and probably especially without the Omni Negate from the Crimson Dragon package, because I think the Crimson Dragon and the Blazar have enough points so you can play them together. Centurion is just kind of like the perfect deck for Genesis format. Like, this is the kind of play style, in my opinion, that you want in Genesis format. So like putting these cards lower is good. Maizen and Yaguramoru could go down to 0. Maybe someone is going to play ninjas now. Snake Eye Ash and Poplar go to 0 and Deception goes to 40. Sure, I mean, haven't seen anyone mess around with these. They could be a solid engine in a rank 1 deck, I will say. Maybe there's a world where you can play these as a strategy to make like an instant rank 1. I don't know, but I think that would probably be okay. Hidden City goes to 0. This is good. I mean, they put a lot of searchers to points in the beginning, but I think a lot of this, I think, is good housekeeping. I'm seeing a lot of cards going down to 0, and I think this is good because, of course, the Genesis point list is already rather long, which I don't personally have a problem with, but I think they should be keeping up with it, and they should be removing cards off of it whenever possible, just to keep it. It's always gonna be a large list, but keeping it as small as possible is still good. Just make it more easily accessible and understandable of what's having points and what doesn't have points. So Poplar, Ash, Hidden City, Levianeer, all cards that saw virtually 0 play. Dragon's Light and Darkness goes from 7 to 3. Okay, this probably goes to 0 at some point. Asceticism, I'm not sure, of the Six Samurai goes down to 0. Shien's Dojo goes down to 0. Six Samurai is a potentially scary deck, but as long as... I don't know what the points are on Gateway, but Gateway I think has a lot of points, so... Sure. Barrier of the Voiceless Voice goes down to 20. Voiceless Voice is potentially a scary deck. If that deck ever starts seeing play, that could be pretty strong in Genesis. But 20 still is a lot, so we'll see about that. Nadir Servant goes to 20. That could be an interesting package now. That's a really high quality card for Genesis format. But 20, of course, playset is still going to cost you 60. So you can't even play Herald of the Arclight with it because that's 50 points. Okay. Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle goes to 40, which is an increase because Big Welcome and Welcome Labyrinth go down 20. Oh, okay. We can now play 1 Lady, 3 Big Welcome. That would be 100. So we get no... If we do 1 Lady, 2 Big Welcome, 1 Welcome, that'd be 100 points. Okay, which is more than you could do before. All right, small increase for Labyrinth. Maybe that'll help. Maybe you can build a version without Lady and just play 3 Big Welcome, 1 Welcome, and have 20 points to spare. Could be something. Philia Regis going to 10. Dragon Maid Shu going down to 10. Ladies Dragon Maid going down to 10. Dragon Maid Tiding going down. Fair enough. No one played Dragon Maids. Sword Soul Emergence. Once again, Sword Soul, similar to Centurion. Sword Soul is the kind of deck, especially without Baron de Fleur, is kind of like the perfect power level for Genesis, right? So, yes, less points for Sword Soul is good. Denglong going down to 20. That card's a little scary, but okay. Well, I mean... Charge of the Light Brigade going down to 25. Fair enough. Wandering Griffin Rider going to 50 points, but Rite of Aramis and Water Enchantress go down to 0. Is this a net positive? No, this is the same as before. If you want to play the full package, this is going to be 50 points, and before it was 20 plus 15 plus 15, which is also 50 points. But I guess it's following the idea of giving the really problematic cards the points and having the other cards roam free. Because there is a world where you can play Rite of Aramis and Water Enchantress without Griffin Rider. You know, you could play Illegal Knight, or you can just play them as an engine that generates like a level 3 monster and a token on the board, whatever you want to use that for, but fair enough. Okay. Gladiator Beast Tamer Editor going to 80 points because they're removing points on Proving Ground and Rejection. Once again, I think a lot of these hits that we're seeing right now serve as kind of like a just an adjustment to make the list smaller, right? And maybe still be a net positive overall for the archetype, right? So instead of having 3 cards on the list, now we have 1 card on the list. And same thing here, instead of 3 cards on the list, there's just 1 card on the list, and it still does the job of pointing the combo version of the deck pretty heavily, right? So I think this is good, and it always gives people the option to play a weaker version of Gladiator Beast or the Enchantress package for free. If you just skip the really broken card, I guess, right? Like if you don't want to spend the points on Tamer Editor, you can still play Glad Beast for free, which maybe works. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Solfador from 3 to 5, Inclusion to 25, Smyger to 0, and Thistburn to 0. Okay. Once again, just some back and forth with the numbers here on Crystron. Fair enough. Deck didn't really see any play. I think overall this is definitely a net positive because we're only gaining 2 points on Solfador, but we're losing 8 points here, 5 points here, 5 points here. So this definitely helps Crystron see some play, which without Link monsters and with heavily pointed Infinity, a lot weaker of a deck. So fair enough. The branded package. Fallen the Virtuous goes from 15 to 40. They have announced this beforehand. This is complete. Now it's basically completely dead as a generic card, which... Sure, I was kind of hoping it could see some play as a generic card. At the same time, it's a really powerful generic card. This is gonna be this is very good for branded. Okay, Albion from 20 down to 5, Titanic Lad down to 0, Sprint down to 0, Grand Guignol down to 0, Brigrant down to 0, and the Dragon that devours the Dogma down to 5. This is an amazing change for branded because I can tell you one thing. I can tell you what branded is gonna do. They are just not gonna play this card. And they get to play all of these cards for basically free now. And what did they make Branded Fusion last time? I forgot. But they made Branded Fusion cheaper because they put points on all defusions. So maybe you can play multiple Branded Fusions now. I'm not sure what the points are for Branded Fusion. I have to look it up. But this is a super good change for Branded because they're just not going to play this card. No one is going to play this card now. So I guess that's kind of like why I'm not a huge fan of this one, because generic decks or like all that, no one is going to play Fallen at the Virtues as a generic card anymore, and Branded is not going to spend 40 points on that card. It is not that good for Branded, I don't think. You're just going to play an extra copy of Branded Fusion always, and your extra deck becomes basically free now. So I guess we'll have to see, but I think this is a huge buff to Branded, and Branded is already a pretty scary deck in Genesis format. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't good before this update. It was playable but not great, but now it might just become one of the best decks in the format, which we'll have to see about that. Yeah, this is the first thing that I'm not super positive about. I don't know. Incoming Machine down to 0. Yes, that card should not have points. Should have never had points. Red Eyes Black Full Metal Dragon to 33. I think this is the Omni Negate, which is fair enough. You know, I like that. Pointing Omni Negates is good in my book. Light End and Dark End go down to 1. Fair enough. These could probably have 0 points. Assault Synchron goes down to 1. Change of Heart goes down to 7. Snatch Steal goes down. Okay, a lot of generic cards here just that didn't see much play. Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Destruction to Karmic Cannon without Link Monsters is surprisingly fair. I mean, it's a fair card, even in Advanced Constructed, but surprisingly underwhelming in Genesis, so this could eventually even be lower, but I've played around with it. It's still a good card. Dominus Impulse down to 20, okay. Dominus Spiral down to 0, okay, interesting. This is gonna make it an option now. For 5, it was not worth it. Duality down to 3, all right, maybe an option. Foolish Burial Goods up to 7, fair enough. Premature Burial down to 3 points. Okay, we're getting into territories here where these cards might start to seem interesting. Monster Reborn down to 5 as well. I don't think we're there yet. Maybe Premature Burial because it has some potential to be like bounced back to your hand, or searched because it's an equip spell. But Monster Reborn should probably be 3 points as well, or less. Dimension Fusion down to 40. Return from the Different Dimension down to 40. Okay, fair enough. I don't want to drag this video out too long, so I'm just going to give you my brief thoughts on this overall. All of the hits that happened here, or basically 99% of what's done here, is amazing. And it's not just things going in the right direction, it's things going exactly the way I want it, you know? They're not putting some extra 5 points on Droll. No, they're giving it 25. Nice. They're not giving slight hits to Automat. They're giving it massive hits. You know, if they want to achieve something here, they are doing it, you know? Like they're not messing around, which I think is awesome. A lot of generic extra deck, a lot of combos, a lot of towers, a lot of floodgates, a lot of, you know, hitting the best decks in the format, Droll and Lock. So much good things happening here. One thing I'm missing, you know, where's Dimension Shifter? Where's Dimensional Fissure? Why is, like, okay, if you want to have Shifter at 10 points, I guess I can live with it. People aren't really playing it much at the moment, but Dimensional Fissure at 0, really? That doesn't need to be the case. I think that's going to be the main thing that people are going to complain about in the upcoming Genesis rotation. But yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to not look at this very positively as a whole, because like all of these changes are super amazing, and I really, if I can think of one card right now, which is Dimensional Fissure, and Macrocosmos and Dimension Shifter, this kind of card that I would really like to see some points. Other than that, this gets me super hyped to play Genesis again. Basically, all of the stuff that was super toxic beforehand is now properly pointed or straight up impossible to play, which is awesome. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I know this video is relatively long now. I'm looking at the number here, but let me know what you think of this. Do you like me rambling about this for a while? Should I just look at it beforehand before I do this video? Because now, of course, I have to go through the entire list and kind of like read it and comprehend. I could look at it beforehand in the future, because sometimes these lists are relatively long, and just like sum up my thoughts in this video. But let me know. Once again, reminder, take part in the survey, please, for the Card Game Awards. Please take the time. I would really appreciate it. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the newest Genesis update and what deck you're going to play now. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Peace.